Good day, and welcome to Opera Glasses. I'm your new host, Michael Jones, and I'm pleased to have you join us today as we interview Ariana Maubach. Ariana was the first place winner and audience choice winner at the recent Canadian Opera Company's Center Stage competition. So, welcome, Ariana. We're really pleased to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm especially honored that this is your first episode as host, and I get to chat with you today, so thank you for having me.
It's a real delight, and it's a delight for me to meet the next generation of singers as you come up
Absolutely.
through competitions and through what training programs you're doing and the studying that you're doing. But if you don't mind, let's start right back at the beginning. You are a young woman and you have decided to become an opera singer, which is probably not the career choice for most primary. I'm sure that most primary school students, when they're asked what do you want to be when you grow up, it's very few who actually say that they want to be opera singers.
Right.
So how did you come about this as a career path? What started you off? What was growing up like for you?
Well, my parents, I'll start with them. They certainly are not musical. They're both in law. My brother is also not musical. He's an entrepreneur. So I kind of came as a wild card. I guess my mom had interest in dance and danced at a pretty high level. And my dad also played the piano at a high level. But no singers whatsoever. So they decided that they would put me in the Toronto Children's Chorus when I was 6 years old. And they were crazy enough to bring me to Roy Thompson Hall when I was 4 days old to watch my cousin, Jessica, sing with the Toronto Children's Chorus. So that was my first introduction to music and to a venue like Roy Thompson at just 4 days old, like I said. But yeah, I really had a fantastic upbringing with the TCC, you know, the musical education, the theory, the oral skills, the history, and the friendship element. You know, I met so many of my closest friends who I'm still in touch with and see regularly through the Toronto Children's Chorus. And so for people who may not know about the TCC, it's a very kind of high-level choir. The training is intense. We rehearse multiple times a week. And at the time, we were going on these major international tours. So we went to Argentina, we went to Brazil, and to Sweden. Some of those were for competitions. Other were more just kind of, you know, retreats and connecting with other choirs around the world and workshopping music. But that was really a terrific introduction to music. I loved, like I said, singing alongside my friends, being a part of this greater body of sound and feeling like I was a small piece contributing to such a large, impactful thing, a body of sound, like I said. So that was great. And I don't think that there was ever a moment, though, where I specifically knew that opera was going to be what I was eventually going to do. You know, after I graduated from the choir in 11th grade in high school, I, of course, just decided that I, you know, still wanted to sing. So I enrolled in private voice lessons at the RCM, at the Royal Conservatory of Music. Robert Lowen was my teacher, and I did the high school, like, young artist program there. I believe it has a different name now, but I certainly loved that. And then from that point on, you know, it was something that I was like, okay, I want to try and do my undergrad in this and continue on with it. My singing journey was by no means finished. So I went to the Eastman School of Music and I got my bachelor's of music there in vocal performance. I had a terrific 4 years there. And the rest is kind of history. But yeah, I certainly do owe the initial singing bug that I caught from the TCC. They were really important in my musical growth and development initially. So big shout out to them.
That's wonderful. Who was in charge? Who was the artistic director? Was it still Jean, or had Jean Ashrick Bartle, or had they moved on by the time you were there?
So when I was starting, it was Mrs. Bartle, and then very shortly after that, I think I had only a couple years with Miss Bartle, and then it was Elise Bradley.
Oh,
became.
of course it was.
Yes.
Who came
Yeah.
after that? I had forgotten who had followed Jean. Funny story is that Jean, when I was very, very young,
Hmm.
Jean and my father used to teach together on
Oh,
in
no way.
summers on Prince Edward Island. So I grew up knowing Miss Jean too, and this was before she was married, but I knew her as
Wow.
a child as well.
Very cool. I mean, yeah, she's certainly a very well known, beloved woman. So that's a very funny coincidence.
That's very good. It was a huge coincidence. This was before the Toronto Children's Choir, I think, had even
Right.
confirmed it.
For sure.
So, because she certainly didn't set out to recruit me. So, so you went to Eastman School
I did.
and you did your undergrad there. Did you go on for further studies, or when did you complete at Eastman? When were you done at
I
Eastman?
did. So I did my 4-year undergrad there, and I graduated in 2018. And at that point, I still knew, I feel like I've always kind of thought of my voice as being, a little bit like a pot roast, just needing time to kind of cook and slowly get to its point of being ready to enjoy. And so I did certainly feel like I wanted to have more technique under my belt before I, started performing. So I took a gap year. I nannied for a very close family friend of ours, and she had one son at the time, and then later ended up having a daughter. And so I was looking after a 2-year-old and a newborn, which certainly took probably a decade off of my life, but I really, really, really enjoyed it and learned that I absolutely love children. So that was a fantastic experience. And all throughout my time nannying, I was taking lessons with Stephanie Bogle, who later became my full-time teacher when I joined the Glenn Gould School and did my artist diploma there for 2 years from 2019 to 2021. That was obviously an interesting time for us all. But the support that GGS provided me during that time and the structure of, having something to wake up and look forward to every day, and seeing Stephanie and seeing the other coaches. And we even got to kind of work on productions. We worked on Lucrezia by Bolcom, a fantastic opera that I would love to do one day again. It's not very typical to be performed, but I would certainly love to do that again. And then we also did The Rape of Lucretia. And, it was a COVID abbreviated type of performance. But like I said, it really provided me structure, and I made sure that I was continuing to move forward and make strides technically during that time. So GGS was extremely important for me. And then I decided I still wasn't done with school. So I went and I got a master's at University of Cincinnati at CCM, the College Conservatory of Music there. And I spent 2 years there from 2021 to 2023. Again, had a fantastic time. We were all unleashed at that point, able to perform, able to be around each other and not have to be physically distanced from one another. And my training continued there. And then the kicker is I still was not wanting to emerge yet. And so I am currently now a resident artist at the Academy of Vocal Arts in Philadelphia. I've been here for, like I said, 2 years. I've been involved in many productions here, and I've had a fantastic time. And my teacher here, Bill Schumann, has been incredibly supportive and helpful. And I feel like I'm in the best shape vocally that I've been ever. So I thank all of my teachers who have taught me along the way. I certainly owe it to them and to their wisdom and support and belief in me. So yeah, just a shout out to my teachers who I've mentioned. I could not be where I am without them.
Now, a lot of the established singers with whom we chat, the people who we feature in our Artist of the Week, talk about the fact that they continually need to go back. They continually need this person that they go to for check
Mm-hmm.
for to keep the instrument healthy. And do you see yourself in that place? Because you talk about recognizing your slow baking roast there.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great point. I've had again, like you mentioned, established singers, I've heard many times that how important it is to cultivate, kind of like you're a race car driver, and to cultivate your pit crew and your crew of people that you know that you can trust and rely on for technical support and even just life support. And I certainly have developed my own kind of pit crew of coaches and teachers and mentors who I really look up to, and who, like you said, I plan to rely on for the rest of my career, because they are instrumental in making sure that everything runs smoothly. And yeah.
Okay, so before I move into the competition, you're in Philadelphia now.
Yes.
Um, we talked a little bit about the operas that you sang when you were at the Glenn Gould School. What roles are you singing now? What are you learning in Philadelphia?
I'm thrilled to be singing Dorabella in Così fan tutte in February here at AVA. It's my first, my first entire Mozart role, and it has certainly humbled me. As many Mozart singers know, or singers in general, that Mozart loves to just kind of sit up there in the cracks. A very fun place to live. So it's been, like I said, humbling, challenging, extremely rewarding, figuring out and negotiating what it's like kind of sitting up in that higher tessitura, especially for mezzi. It's right up in that crack area up at the top, the passaggio. So one of the passaggios. So it's been great. I've absolutely loved it. Like I said, it's been extremely challenging, but has really been a good teaching experience in how to sing that kind of repertoire. And the show is very fun. So it's been a real treat, and I look forward to singing that in February.
That's wonderful. One of the singers the teachers that I worked with many years ago used to begin every lesson, whether that's what we were working on or not, with a bit of a Mozart aria, because she said your technique has to be absolutely in place if you're going to sing this Mozart. And so
100%.
she would use it as a check-in. Are you finding that?
Absolutely. She sounds like a smart woman. It certainly is a check-in. And I would imagine, like you said, a great way to kind of start each day of singing.
Yeah. Other Mozart roles you've sung, or how about ones that really interest you that you've done bits of, but you're like, oh, I really want to do this?
I guess funny story. I very distinctly remember being at the Young Artist Performance Academy at the Royal Conservatory of Music, and I was kind of sitting in the hallway waiting for a lesson with Bob Lowen. And at the time, I had no idea what this person was singing, but I remember kind of humming the tune into my phone to record it. And I was going, which of course is Voi che sapete. And I remember hearing someone practicing that and thinking, I love this. What is this? And yeah, just kind of hilarious that ignorant me at the age of whatever, 16, had no idea what that was. But so yeah, no, Carabino is not a role that I've learned in its entirety, but I certainly know his arias. I love Clemenza. There are some fantastic mezzo arias in that. But no, Dorabella is the first Mozart role that I've learned in its entirety.
Okay. Now the COC competition.
Mm-hmm.
You were in Toronto for a week for that, is that right?
Yes.
So what did you do actually leading up to the day on October 30th?
So I flew from from Philadelphia rather, on the Friday. And I decided that if I was going to be my most happy, calm, and relaxed self, that I would spend a few days with my parents, because I'm very, very close with my family. And I love our neighborhood, and I love getting to walk my dog and just, feeling human and normal and having that kind of routine that I grew up having. So I spent time there living with them. It was incredibly exciting to finally get to work with the esteemed COC music staff, who I've always heard of and dreamt of getting to work with. Wendy Nielsen I had actually met when I was 15 years old. I went to her vocal institute in St. Andrews, New Brunswick, and I totally fell in love with her and the way that she teaches there. But of course, now it's over 10 years later where I got to see her again. So that was a very exciting moment. Also, Liz Upchurch, a person who I've respected and admired and have been dying to work with for so long. So getting to coach multiple arias with her was incredibly exciting. There was so much food for thought, and as singers we're always talking about our toolbox, and having people who are adding to that constantly and giving you new tools and ways of thinking about things, and they certainly did that. I left Toronto with lots of new ideas and things that I might envision when I'm practicing nowadays. So I was so thrilled and excited to work with Liz and Wendy, and of course Maestro Debus. That was very exciting, and Rachel Kerr. I hope I'm not forgetting anyone. Oh, and then of course getting to sing for Roberto Mauro and Dorian was incredible. And so yeah, that was kind of the week leading up to it. It was very calm. They didn't overload us. Our days were filled with maybe 1 to 3 coachings. And it was very relaxed. I had such a fun time meeting the other finalists. It was a really lovely crew of people, and we all kind of kept each other sane and were just laughing and making jokes and being silly backstage leading up to it. So it was a terrific experience.
So you did get to spend time with the other finalists?
Yes, I did.
And did you know any of them in advance?
I didn't. I guess no, I actually didn't. I was going to say I knew of certain people, but I think because I haven't done a lot of my training in Toronto, I've been kind of out of the loop with the Canadian crew of people. But yeah, I remember that kind of in the second half of the program or the evening, it was Emma Pinnell, Nicholas Murphy, and Olivia Lapointe, and myself. And the 4 of us just had an absolute ball backstage. We were just laughing, making jokes. It was such a supportive, relaxed environment. I couldn't have hoped for a better crew of singers to share that stage with.
That's wonderful. Okay, so that was the week leading up to the event.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about the events on October 30th. Tell us how your day went. When were you up? How long were you there? Things
So
like
it was a full day on the 30th. We were warned that it would be long, and it certainly was. We had our dress rehearsal that same day. And then of course the closed round of the competition happens directly before the curtain opens and before we do our open round for the public. So there really isn't much time in between. I think that maybe there was about a 30-minute break in between the open and closed round, but it was good. I mean, the momentum and the adrenaline was certainly pumping. So in a way that was helpful. I remember that for the dress rehearsal, I was feeling, I don't know, I think it was the first time that it kind of set in that this was going to happen. And I remember walking out and it being pitch black and being, kind of terrified. But I certainly got the jitters out in the dress rehearsal. And I just kept remembering that people and singers have always said that, if you have a bad dress rehearsal, you'll have a great performance. So I was believing and banking on that.
did you
But
do both arias at the dress rehearsal? Both the
yes,
closed and open? You did
yes,
both at the dress rehearsal. Okay.
exactly. And then there was a bit of a break in between. I remember I went back to my hotel. I had some chicken salad. I steamed. I called a couple friends and my parents, and that was that. Then I headed across the street from the hotel that they put us in, and it was time. And I remember that being last, there's obviously like a bit more sitting around and waiting, and kind of the pressure builds, and the dressing room or the backstage room slowly starts to dwindle. Suddenly you're just kind of the last one standing. But like I said, our crew of 4 back there, Emma, Nick, Olivia, and I were keeping each other sane and strong, and I was certainly very focused. I was excited, and oddly enough, I remember going out on stage and not feeling, I think I was probably a little bit, nervous, excited, but I distinctly remember, looking back, not feeling like I was that nervous. There was something that was so, I knew that I had friends and family in the audience, and a lot of my former teachers were there, which meant so much to me. and having worked with many of the judges during the week, not all of them, but a few of them, I knew that everyone was genuinely rooting for every single singer that stepped foot on that stage. So just knowing that you had the support and the love of the people in the hall was something that was very calming for me and really kind of put me at ease. And of course, the incredible orchestra conducted under Maestro Debus was so supportive. I mean, it's not every day that a young artist gets to sing with an orchestra of that caliber and of a conductor of that caliber. So it was such a treat. And my only goal was to just go out there and enjoy it and be present. And if that's all I did, I was going to be happy with that. I just wanted to stay in the moment and to think of my character and to embody Carmen and Isabella. And I feel as though I did that. And it was, I mean, the night was thrilling.
So so you sang Carmen in the closed round, is that right?
I did. I sang the Seguidilla.
You sang the Seguidilla.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. You talked in your video package how drawn you were to the arias of Carmen.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was surprised that you sang Rossini for us after telling us how drawn you were to Carmen. So I'm pleased to know you did it in the earlier round. How did you choose which arias you were singing that night? How did you narrow it down? Because I'm sure those weren't your only two on your list.
Right.
And how did you choose what was for the closed round, and what was for the audience that night?
Well, so interestingly enough, those two arias, the Seguidilla and Cruda Sorte, have been in my package for a very long time. I think I learned them all the way back when I was at GGS, so in 2019. And, you know, as singers, we're always kind of battling muscle memory and the challenges that singing something old presents. But for whatever reason, those two arias have kind of been able to slowly unravel themselves and keep evolving despite the technical stages that I've gone through while I've had them in my package. And they really are arias that I feel like I could sing in my sleep. The Seguidilla is consistently my starter for auditions, and so I knew that was something that I wanted to sing. And like I mentioned, I absolutely adore Carmen and that character. And the Rossini is just fun. You know, I love to sing stuff that has agility and that is melismatic. I find that that's a really freeing way of singing for me. So the choices were kind of no-brainers. I really connect to the pieces and, like I said, enjoy singing them and find that they flatter my voice and show off the most, or I guess, beautiful or impressive parts of my singing. And so the choices were not easy, or were easy rather. And then the COC staff were super helpful in basically suggesting, you know, what would be better to sing for each of the rounds. And in my case, I was completely happy with what they proposed as being my closed round aria and my open round.
There were only 7 of you, so it wasn't, and there was only one other mezzo, I think, in the 7 finalists. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And so you didn't have overlapping repertoire or anything like that?
I believe that maybe a few of the soprani had. I think there may have been a couple non mi dirs from Don Giovanni that were offered, but I think that someone had sang it for the open and then the other person was singing it for the closed. So I believe that was really the only overlap of repertoire. But yeah, I mean, I think we were all kind of thankful that we all had our own marks to make on our individual arias and that there was no issue with any doubles. So that worked out really well.
So how long are you in Philadelphia for now?
So the Academy of Vocal Arts resident artist training is technically a 4-year program, and I'm in my second of 4.
Okay, super.
And oftentimes people will decide if you're getting professional contracts or if you want to do a different kind of young artist program, then sometimes people will leave after 3 and they'll still be able to obtain their artist diplomas because they will have fulfilled those requirements by their 3rd year. But it's such a fantastic place because the training and the resources are really there at our disposal to make the most of, and they put on fantastic productions. Obviously, the level of singing is incredibly high, so it's been a really challenging, stimulating, and rewarding environment for the last 2 years.
Wonderful. And summers in Europe or not yet for you?
So I was fortunate enough last summer. I actually ended up taking a bit of a break. My older brother was getting married in Toronto right in the middle of the summer. So my whole family was there for that, and that kind of was right in the middle of all of these young artist programs, and I had thought that maybe I would want to finally get to go abroad and do kind of a language study and immersive program there, but it just wouldn't have made sense to get up and leave in the middle of it to come fly back to Toronto. So I had a fantastic summer. I went out east in Canada. We went to Newfoundland with our close family friends. I traveled a bit with my boyfriend. We had some weddings. We were in Vermont as well for a wedding. So it was a really fulfilling summer of just relaxation while slowly kind of, keeping the grind going, practicing, polishing up my aria package, continuously working on that because of course audition season comes around fast in the fall. The summer before that, I spent in Des Moines, Iowa, at Des Moines Metro Opera. I had such an amazing summer singing there. I sang Lynette in The Love for Three Oranges, and that was, I guess, my professional debut. What a fun, 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 fun show. And a very nice ease in. I don't know if everyone will know The Love for Three Oranges, but Lynette is one of the princesses or the oranges, and she has a very short-lived life. She's on stage for about probably 3 minutes, but it was certainly a jam-packed full 3 minutes. I lived and I died in those 3 minutes, so that was super fun. And I'll be spending next summer in San Francisco. So no plans as of yet to be in Europe, but I really hope and I trust that those are in the cards for the future, but just not quite yet.
And other roles that you're learning now, other things that sit in your audition rep?
I'm in flux. I'm in an in between. I'm kind of, learning some arias that might be a bit of kind of a stretch for right now and things that I might not necessarily be cast as today, but certainly things that I could see in my long-term future. And I'm finding it very, very satisfying and technically rewarding to be stretching myself in those ways. So just as an example, I'm learning O mio Fernando, which I love singing. I've also been kind of stretching my Rossini capabilities, and I'm looking at Tanti Affetti from Donna del Lago, which is very challenging, as a
That's
lot of
the final
Rossini
aria
is.
from Donna del Lago, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. So I've been kind of, I'm not sure that it'll be, something that I'm ready to add to my package tomorrow, but I really love the challenge of working on these pieces that are stretches. And what's the other aria that I just started looking at O Malheureux Immortel from Sappho. So that's been also really, really fun. I mean, a lot of this big legato, slow repertoire kind of feels like a vocal massage in a way. It feels really good to sing. So I feel like that's kind of how I know that I'm in the right spot. But whether I sing them, next year or in several years from now, we'll see. But
And you're young, you're in development, so
absolutely.
you don't actually know. What's your dream role that you would love to do someday?
I mean, I did say Carmen in my COC interview, but I would also love Charlotte from Werther. I love
Which I
French
think every
repertoire,
mezzo grows up loving because you
of
have that
course.
spectacular whole scene with Sophie that's
Of course, exactly. So yeah, that's probably my other bucket list role.
wonderful. That's exciting. Okay, so let's just do some really fun questions that you know. Your food sin, the thing that you love that you know isn't good for you.
Oh, I could eat mac and cheese for every single meal for the rest of my life.
Real mac and cheese? Like, are you actually making the pasta? Are we talking craft dinner here?
We're talking craft dinner. We're talking about the cheap, good stuff that comes in a box that's non-perishable.
Perfect coffee or tea?
Coffee for sure. I love a full fat milk latte. I'm not a nut milk girly. I love a latte with some sort of either vanilla or cinnamon or caramel. It's Starbucks holiday drink season, so I would always pick having a chestnut praline latte over black coffee for sure.
What are you binge watching on TV or on one of the services?
I'm always embarrassed to admit my reality TV obsession, but I'm a huge Real Housewives fan. My boyfriend and I were watching the Martha Stewart documentary the other night. We got about halfway through that, but yeah, reality TV is definitely my guilty pleasure.
And what are you reading?
What am I reading? Nico Costell translation of Così fan tutte. Does that count? Reading, constantly trying to memorize.
Good. Okay, well, thank you so much, Ariana, for taking the time to speak with us today. I know that our listeners and the readers at Opera Canada wish you all the best, and we couldn't be happier for your success. Any final words that you want to say before we sign off?
No, I just want to say thank you again so much for having me. It was so fun to chat with you and to be a guest on your first episode as host. So thank you for thinking to invite me, and thank you to everyone who watched the competition that night, either there in person or online. Opera supporters mean so much to us, and you're the reason why we do what we do so that we can connect with you. So thank you for being there and for supporting the arts. And that's all from me. Thank you again for having me.
And thank you so much for joining us. And everyone out there, stay tuned for the next episode of the Opera Classes podcast. I'm Michael Jones. We're speaking with Ariana Maubach, and I'm really pleased to have you join us today.